Hi! Today's video is going to be the first update to the Pan That Palette Project Pan of 2025. This project was originally created by Amber F. Her YouTube channel is going to be linked down in my description. Go check her out. This year I decided to pan my ABH Norvina palette. Let's see what it is looking like on the inside. I will pop up a picture somewhere of where it looked like in the introduction, which was last month. So here is what it is looking like currently. There is a chunk loose here. I'm just gonna take it out so I don't have to worry about it, but I will use it up. So here it is. Not too major changes from the last month. The biggest one being that I hit my first pan of the year in a shade called Wild Child, and I used up quite a lot of this shade down here called Base. So let's go through and see how many times I managed to use each shade since the introduction. The first shade up here is called Dreamer. This one already had pan in it in the introduction. I used it additional 7 times. I don't think there is that much pan expansion going on, maybe a tiny bit, but that is a very everyday wearable shade for me. I use it on the inner half of my lid quite often. Next shade here is called Summer. This one I only used once. It is a nice rich golden shade. I do like that one, but I think that one I am gonna focus on more during summertime. Next is the shade called Wild Child that I actually managed to hit a tiny pan on. There it is. I used it 9 times to hit that pan. I was quite surprised. It happened quite fast. The shade Dazzling, for example, already had pan in it in the introduction, but it took me about 20 uses to hit pan on that one. So only 9 times to use Wild Child to hit pan on it was quite a nice surprise. I was really focusing on that shade as well. In the month of January, Wild Child is still gonna keep getting uses on it after this update as well. In the beginning of February, at least until Valentine's Day, maybe a bit after that as well. Next up, we have this shade called Rose Gold. It already had pan in it in the introduction. This one I only used once, but I already know that I love that shade, and it is not gonna be hard at all to use that shade and try to incorporate that into my looks. Next up is this beautiful purple shade here called Celestial. This one I only used once as well, just to test it out. I'm pretty sure I had never used that shade on my lids before pulling this palette into this project, so I just kind of wanted to figure out how to use it a little bit. I was hoping to pair it with this purple down here, but these purples have completely different undertones to them, so it's gonna have to go with this pink and with this other purple up here. But let's not skip over the shade Dazzling. As I said, it already had pan in the introduction. I managed to use it 4 more times, expanded the pan maybe a little bit, teeny tiny bit maybe. And the last shimmery shade in this palette is this shade called Drama. That one I used 3 times, all of those times as a liner. I really like that shade as a liner actually, so that is how I'm gonna hit my pan on it. If we move on to the bottom row, the mattes, the first shade here is called Base. That one has a tiny loose bit here that was a corner, and it just came loose today. So I put it back in there so you can see that it is still there, but I will take it out now so that I can hold the palette up properly. That shade I use as my lid setting shade. I use it every time that I do my eyeshadow, and since the introduction I used it 15 times. So I did my eyeshadow 15 times since the introduction. It did go up quite late, so I am not surprised that I got only 15 uses on it. Next up, we got the shade Soul that I already talked a little bit. I used that one 3 times. Next up, we have this neutral brown here called Incense. That one I used 5 times. That is a very everyday wearable shade for me as well. Next, we have this nice pink shade that I really like a lot. It is called Love, and I used that one 6 times. Love pairing the shade called Love with Wild Child as well. Obviously, they go very well together. Next, we have a shade called Volatile. That one I used only once. Eccentric I used only once as well, and Passion I used only once as well. Those 3 are not my favorites. I don't know what I'm gonna do with those ones, but I still have time to figure that out. I'm not tiring my little brain with that right now. So I did manage to use every shade in this palette at least once since the introduction. That was not an official goal, but I did kind of want to do that just to test out every shade. I had not used every shade in this palette before pulling the palette in, so it was just like a nice way of testing out every shade and getting to know this palette better. For the next update, I should set a goal. Definitely I want to have the shade called Base used up, but can I hit another pan in here as well? I am not sure. Nothing looks that used, but I'm still gonna set that as a goal. I'll try to hit another pan here. If that doesn't happen, that's fine, but let's just get a move on and try to hit another pan. Let's try to get the 6th pan in this palette. So that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing as well. Thank you so much and bye bye.